Hello and welcome back to the channel. I'm Loudguns, and today I've been in the PTU for 313, and I just want to do a quick run through of the new mining modules. So I'm going to get myself out, travel all across Stanton, go to all the different refinery decks and see what all the modules are, what they do, where you can buy them, and try and compile that information for all of you. If you find this sort of content useful, then please feel free to hit that like button, subscribe, and just let me know what you think in the comments. A lot of this is still theory crafting at this point, so I'm going to show maybe my builds for moles and prospectors, but let me know what you think. That would be really interesting. So I've popped together this spreadsheet, having dug around, and I don't particularly believe in saving back sort of all the juicy detail till the very end. So if you're literally just here for some info, feel free to pause at this point and check out this spreadsheet for all the different modules and their effects and where you can buy them. Sort of the short version is that every one of the modules has a positive and a negative attribute, and it will impact those particular aspects of the mining gameplay. They come in almost families, so there are always three in a particular group that all have the same positive and negative attribute, but then they sort of go up in quality, if you like. So they'll have more of the positive attribute and less of the negative in general as you go up to the more expensive versions. All of the existing mining consumables are still in the game, and it's worth bearing in mind that the new modules that they've put in, are not quite as impressive on stats as the consumables are. The difference being, though, that you should be able to install these once onto your laser in the same slot that the consumable goes in. That should in turn just save some time in terms of sort of remembering how many charges you've used, so you might not get quite the same effect, but you don't have to worry about, do I need to replace this module before I go out on a mining trip? And you don't have to worry about running out and having to factor in sort of a trip to the shops to buy more of the particular consumables that you use. So we'll probably now go on and look at each of the module series individually. But I would say probably from this list to focus on the most expensive one in each series. That's where you seem to really get the biggest benefit, and you can use modules in tandem to maybe offset the negatives with a net positive. So the first one in the series is the FLTR. So we'll look at the FLTR XL. So all of the modules in this series reduce the amount of inert materials that you pick up, but that is offset by the negative of decreasing your extraction rate. However, this is a really interesting one. There's a couple of them in here which do something completely different to what you can get from the existing mining consumables. So this is one of those. And I think this is going to be a really interesting one, particularly for prospector miners, where sort of space is at a premium, and the more dirt that you bring home, the more you hurt your profitability. So at 60,000 AUEC for the most expensive version, I think that's pretty reasonable, and that's about as expensive as these modules seem to get. And you can pick that FLTR XL up at Arc L1, Her L1, and Mick L1. Probably just worth saying here, I've tried putting them onto prospectors and moles. Even though they say a size on them, they don't seem to vary. There's not a size 2 version. You don't have to worry about it the same way as you worry about it with the mole laser versus the prospect laser. So next up we have the Focus series. So these have the benefit of reducing resistance, but then the negative of increasing instability. So the best one here in this series is the Focus 3. Drops resistance by 10%, but increases instability by 4%. It costs you 40,000 alpha UEC. This is where you do start to really see that you should probably be focusing on the premier offering from any one of these groups. So they in the 3, you've got that sort of big difference between the positive and the negative in favor of the positive attribute. But if we just look at the focus, sort of the base model in this series, which does only cost 4,000 AUEC, it is even, so it drops resistance by 6% at a cost of a 6% increase in instability. So I don't really see that you're getting too much of a statistical gain as such. So I haven't seen any content on this just yet, and I haven't heard anybody from CIG talking through the modules. So forgive me if I get some of the pronunciation wrong in hindsight. I'm going to call this the Riga series. So here the benefit is an increase to optimal charge windows, so that's going to sort of expand that green zone that you're aiming for when you're mining, but that's going to come at the cost of increasing resistance. So if we look at the Riga C3 model, that will increase that optimal charge window by plus 10%, but it comes at a cost of increasing resistance by plus 6%. That highest level one will set you back 60,000 AUEC. Next up, we have the Torrent series. So these increase your laser power. So that's quite an interesting one because again, it's sort of, we don't have a direct comparator in the modules, but that comes at a cost of increased instability. So the Torrent 3 will increase laser power by 4% while also increasing instability by 3%. Cost you 40,000 AUEC. There, the positive and negative numbers seem quite similar, but probably a 4% increase in laser power is a much bigger benefit than the detraction of 3% increase in instability. The Vaux series are effectively the mirror of the Focus series. So these ones reduce instability at the cost of increasing resistance. So the Vaux C3 at the top level will set you back 20,000 AUEC, minus 10% to instability, plus 4 to resistance. So the final series of modules are the XTRs. These increase extraction rate, but at the cost of reducing your laser's power. So the big boy here is the XTR XL, increases extraction rates by plus 50%, while reducing laser power by minus 4. That will set you back 20,000 AUEC. So I thought I'd just take a quick look at sort of how we might use these, because I've done some test runs and nothing else outside of the modules themselves seems to really have changed in 3.13 versus 3.12. So primary focus would still be on Quantanium, and everything that I said in my videos on solo MOLE mining, solo Prospector mining for Quantanium would still stand. So the scanning techniques the same, locations seem to be the same. The rock sizes in terms of the asteroid fields are still similar, around 5,000 in terms of mass. But the one thing I did take a look at is where maybe some of these modules might be preferable to some of the consumables that we're using. So in the solo MOLE video, I focused on using Surge, and then I would keep the other 2 slots on my Lancet laser free for Brandt. To just drop resistance and instability. I found that really helpful for doing some of the like sort of high percentage Quantanium second breaks. So there's nothing which would really replace the Surge to my mind. I would definitely keep the Surge in my number 1 slot, just for speeding up that first break, particularly if you're solo. But one thing I would look at is maybe rather than using the Brandt for a short-term high reduction in instability and resistance, if you combine the Focus 3 and the VO C3, then you will constantly drop instability by 6%, resistance by 6%, so you get just a consistently more stable laser, which when it stacks with the 75% reductions you get from the Lancet, will really help. And sort of basically these two offset each other, and if you use the highest level, the 3 versions, then they will create you that net benefit of 6% on each side. Now, what I've then also toyed with for my solo build, so in the previous video I did everything from sort of the number 1 laser, sort of directly below the bridge. But what I think you could do is look at using a second laser, so something like the Helix, which already has a higher extraction rate as your specific extracting laser. So you still use laser 1, the Lancet, to break the rocks. But then once you've got them all broken up, you could move into one of the wing lasers. Have that as a Helix, higher extraction rate to begin with. Then utilize the FLTR XLs to reduce down the amount of inert materials that you're collecting. Those have the negative side effect of decreasing your extraction rate, so then you could use an XTR XL to offset that. Sort of the XL version of there will increase your extraction rate by 50%, offsetting the majority of that decrease in the extraction rate from the FLTRs. Alternatively, sort of, to be honest, picking up inert materials is not a problem I come up against too much when solo mole mining. Often if you're hitting a 30% Quantanium rock and then having to head home because of the timers on it, you'll gather up that one rock easily enough with the mole's inventory. So what you might want to opt for instead is just stacking XTR XLs. So you could get an increase in extraction rate of 150% if you just went for all 3 of those on the Helix, and the reduction in laser power wouldn't matter if you were using the Lancet to actually do your braking. So that could speed you up and make those runs just that bit quicker. I'll need to do some more extensive testing to see if the time that you take to move between the Lancet to one of the lasers on the lower deck, does that offset the gains that you get from switching lasers to do your mining and your extracting separately. So for the Prospector, I think the really interesting one is the FLTR XL. That's going to reduce the inert materials that you take home by 20%. So in the Prospector, where that space is at a premium, I've quite often sort of found myself, like, if I come up against a 40% Quantanium rock, basically being a bit sad that I didn't manage to take it home, and particularly if it doesn't split cleanly and you end up with sort of pieces which are like 80% quant, then reducing down the amount of inert that you collect could really help improve your profits. I wouldn't worry too much about the decrease in the extraction rate there. You're going to lose 30% of your extraction speed. But with the Prospector, you don't have so much to pick up anyway. So if you're only filling 32 SCU. So you've probably got that extra time anyway. It won't hurt you too much. The Brant and the Surge I would keep. I'd keep the Surge for making rocks easier to break. And unlike on the Mole, where we were able to separate out sort of a mining laser and an extracting laser, with only having one slot remaining after we've got the FLTR and the Surge in there, I would still go with the Brant to reduce resistance and instability. We can't do the thing that we did with the Mole, where we had the Focus and the Vo to offset one another and create you that net benefit to both resistance and instability. So after gallivanting across Stanton to see its many refinery decks, I'm back off home to my hab to get some well-earned sleep. So if I have made any mistakes in the numbers, then please let me know. Sorry, I might have had a couple of bleary-eyed moments, but I'm pretty sure they're all correct. So if this was useful for you, please just let me know, like, subscribe to the channel, and yeah, please drop any comments down below. Tell me how you're looking forward to using these, and if you see any really good combinations that maybe I've missed, then that would be really interesting to hear. So feel free to get in touch, and I'll also put a link to our Discord down in the video description. So feel free to hop in there and just say hi to us and chat about mining and stats and all that good stuff.